Alright guys, so here we are again, and I'm about to show you how to make macaroni and cheese. And I have just started. I am going to add a whole lot of things to my mac and cheese, just purely because I don't like plain mac and cheese. And I like lots of vegetables in mine, just because I think it boosts the flavor. And I also add bacon. So you can follow the recipe exactly as it is in your books, or you can add things to make it more interesting, or vegetables that you actually like. So I have boiled some water here. It is salted water. Now guys, your water has to be bubbling, okay? So big bubbles popping up on the surface of the water. And then, and only then, can you add your pasta. Now also remember guys, I have a family of 5, so I'm going to be making a lot more than you guys are, all right? So my water's boiling now, and I'm going to pop my pasta in there, and I'm going to give it a stir just so that it doesn't stick onto the bottom of the pot. Lots of water, lots of salt, guys, okay? They say that it should be like seawater, as salty as seawater, which I can tell you is very, very salty. Now I am just going to put the lid back on, just slightly, until it starts to boil again. Do not leave the lid on all the time, because it will boil over and you'll get water all over your stovetop. Alright, so in here, in my other pan, sorry guys, I lost my camera there for a second. I don't know what happened. So in this pan over here, I have got some bacon that I'm going to fry up to really crispy. And then I'm going to be making the white sauce in here. Now the white sauce is a roux, and we're going to talk a lot about that because it's a very important skill to know in cooking. If you know the skill of making a thickened sauce, a white sauce, you can make pretty much anything. Gravy, puddings, custards, anything like that. Alright, so I will come back and show you when I start to do that. Right, now guys, I have another video that tells you exactly how to make a white sauce as well, and goes into a lot of detail. But today I'm going to be going over the basics with you, and also just give your pasta a stir every now and then. I've just given mine a stir, just so that it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pot. All right, and remember, nice lots of water. And keep it boiling. And I've taken the lid off now because it was boiling very vigorously. I'm actually, if you find that it's not boiling too much, just cover half of the pot with the lid, just so that it starts to build up some more heat. All right, but with the white sauce, we are making what the French call a roux, the Americans call a white sauce. A lot of places in the world actually call it a white sauce. Or a bechamel sauce, okay? And a bechamel sauce, a roux, a white sauce, any of those things are the same. And you can make it different. You can add things to it to flavor it. You can add onion, you can add mustard, which we're going to do today. You can add stock, and it becomes a different, it's called a different name, but the same kind of principle. All right, so we are making a thickened sauce here, and that is the basis for our macaroni and cheese. Now when you are starting out year 7, I really want to stress that you need to start off the heat. So once your butter is melted, I want you to switch your heat off, and then I want you to add the flour. Now as you get better at cooking, and you get better at the speed at which you do things, you can do all this on the heat. But please, I really do advise you, when you're starting out and first learning how to make a white sauce, do it off the heat, because you can't keep up with the adding the milk. All right, so I have now got my flour in there, and it's normally equal parts flour to butter. All right, and you can use margarine, it's not a problem. I just like the flavor of butter, so that's why I always use butter. So once you have all the flour mixed into the fat. This is an important step because it's going to prevent lumps from forming in your sauce. You are coating all the flour particles in fat particles, and then as they heat up, they separate, and they won't form clumps in which you can get nice lumps in your white sauce, and we don't want that. We are going to take the milk and we're going to add a little at a time. So I'd say I've got about 4 or 5 tablespoons there. Now you will have a lot less than me. Remember, I am making for my whole family. So I've got 3 times your recipe actually. So now you have to make sure that you mix all that milk in. If you add all the milk in one go, you are going to get lumps. All right. So make sure you add it in a little at a time, and make sure you're getting into all the edges of your pan. All right. I'm going to add the same amount again, no more. And I'm going to mix that in. A lot of the times when people are making white sauce, they make the mistake of not adding the milk slowly. And then when they start heating it up, they start thinking, oh, this is not working. Whereas it takes a while for it to start working, guys. It takes a while for the thickening to take place. And I'm going to talk about the thickening in a minute as well. So you can see that I've got a lump-free sauce. And I have incorporated, I'd say only about a quarter of my total milk. Right, at this stage, you can start adding a little bit more milk. It's not so you won't get. It'll be more difficult for you to get lumps in now. It's sort of separated out, and all the little fat particles and the milk are all nicely mixed. And remember, you must add all the milk that you have been told to use. Now at this stage, it's almost, it's a thin custard sort of texture now. But you can see there are no lumps. And at this stage, and only at this stage, you can add the rest of the milk. Put your heat back on again. And guys, a white sauce is not something that you can leave. All right, you can't walk away from it and let it cook on its own. And I'm going to explain why you can't do that now. Right, so I've got my heat back on, and I'm going to gently stir it, and I'm going to talk it through while I'm doing that. I'm just going to give my pasta another stir. That's going to take about 10 minutes or so, and I'm going to check it in a few minutes time. Right, so I'm going to keep stirring this. Now what is going to happen is a process called gelatinization, and it happens when we have starch and when we heat starch. All right, so you have to have heat for this process to take place. So what happens is the little flour particles that you've got in there, they start heating up, and the milk starts heating up, and everything starts heating up, and the starch molecules, the little flour molecules, start absorbing some of the liquid. And as they absorb the liquid, they get bigger and bigger, and that is what thickens your sauce. And that is called, that process of thickening by heat and starch is called gelatinization. Now, it's going to take a few minutes for it to get to the point where it starts to thicken. But you can see, if I show you the back of my spoon now, that it is not getting thick at all. It'll take a while for the milk to heat up, and then I promise you, once it starts thickening, it will happen very, very quickly. Now, the other reason that we need to make sure that we are stirring, and you can see I'm stirring in a sort of a figure of 8, and every now and then I go right around the corners and the edges of the pan, the pot, so that I make sure that none of it is staying in one place. None of the liquid filled with starch is staying in one place. Now, if you just left this and didn't stir it, what would happen is that the starch molecules on the bottom of the saucepan would start to heat and swell, but the top wouldn't. And then you are going to get lumps because they form little clumps, and then you can't, it's very difficult. You can incorporate them back in again, but it takes a lot of stirring. And you can see I've got a whisk next to me, and that whisk is for if I do get lumps, then I will have to stir it with my whisk. And this is gently going to come up to heat. Now, I'm not going to cut this because I actually want you to see that it takes a little while for the milk to actually heat up to the right temperature. And while I'm doing this, I'm just going to keep giving my pasta a little stir every now and then, and just lift it up and check it. Now, while I'm waiting for the milk to heat up, I'm also going to talk about the pasta. I don't think we haven't made pasta in year 7. Now, when you're making pasta, not only do you have to have a lot of salted water, because that is, when you're making dried pasta, that is the only time that it is able to absorb some flavor, and the salt helps with that. The other reason is that pasta water is actually used in a lot of dishes because a lot of the starch from the pasta comes out in the water when you are cooking it. We're not going to do that today, but there is a dish that we do later on where we actually save some of the water, the pasta water. The other term that goes along with pasta is al dente. And al dente, well, it literally means to the tooth or to the bite. And that is that your pasta mustn't be too soft. It must be a bit chewy. And in macaroni and cheese, that is even more important because you're going to put the mac and cheese in the oven after you have cooked the pasta and put all the ingredients in. You're still going to put this into the oven. So you don't want the pasta to overcook. You still want it to have that sort of chewy texture. So you must make sure that you don't overcook your pasta at this stage. Right, well, I'm just going to check my pasta one more time. We're getting there. All right, remember I'm not putting my lid back on completely. Right, now my pasta is almost there. All right, I want you to see what it looks like on the inside. Right, you can see that it's slightly darker on the inside than it is on the outside. This is not quite done yet, so I'm going to leave it for 1 or 2 minutes. Now it's almost there. And while I am finishing up the pasta, draining the pasta, I am actually going to put the heat off on here so that it doesn't, my white sauce doesn't burn at the bottom. Right, so now I can already feel, can you see that it's getting thicker? And if I lift, you can see that it's thicker at the bottom. So it's at a critical stage now, and I can't, it's even more important now not to stop stirring it. So I'm going to put the heat off on that and just stir it a few times just so that I can drain the pasta. So I'm going to switch the video off now just so that I can go and drain my pasta, and then I'll come back and show you how quickly this white sauce is going to finish up. Right, I'm back, guys, and I have drained the pasta, and that's in a colander by the sink. And now I'm going to show you how quickly this white sauce, I didn't leave it off for very long because otherwise it'll take a while to get the heat back up again. Now, as I said, you can flavor this with different things. We make a dish in South Africa called melkkos, and basically it means milk food. And we actually make little dumplings, and the little flour dumplings go into a white sauce and then with sugar, so it becomes a dessert rather than a savory like mac and cheese. So now again, if I lift up my spoon, you can see that it's now starting to coat the back of the spoon, and we are almost at the stage where our white sauce is thick enough. Now, the white sauce will continue to thicken up in the oven, but it will also continue to thicken as it gets colder. So we don't have to make it, we don't have to get it to the point where it is, you know, it doesn't have to be like the end product like you would imagine mac and cheese to be. It still has to be relatively runny, because as I said, it's going to thicken when it cools, and it's also going to thicken when it's in the oven. Right, and I think we're there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the test to see if your white sauce is ready. So you're going to lift up the spoon, take another spoon and run it down, and if that line doesn't close up, your white sauce is ready. It's thick enough. So I'm going to turn off the heat. Now guys, again, you don't have to do this. I do it just because I like the different cheeses, but you can just use cheddar, you can use red Leicester, you can use a combination of it, any kind of cheese that you guys love. I also use mature cheddar because I think it adds a lot more flavor. So at this stage I'm going to put not a lot of salt, guys, just a little, because your pasta is going to be salty because you've cooked it. Now I like a lot of pepper, so I put a lot of pepper in mine. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add, this is 200 grams of cheddar, but remember I've got a bigger amount than you guys. And I'm just going to leave, oh, I'd say about that much for the top. And then I like to use mozzarella. And again, I want some for the top. So, and I only use about 100 grams of mozzarella, just because I like that stringy effect that it has, like when you're eating a pizza. All right, so I put about 50 grams of mozzarella in there as well. And I'm doing this while it's hot so that the cheese actually melts into the white sauce. And now it becomes a cheese sauce. All right, there we go. And you can just leave that on the side for a minute to carry on melting. Now I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to put everything together. It's a very quick process, guys. Right, so I've put my pasta just back in my bowl. Otherwise you end up using so many bowls, guys. So I'm going to put my cheese sauce in, and the reason I'm mixing it into my saucepan is that I don't want to dirty another saucepan, because you're dirtying a saucepan for the cheese sauce, using another one for the pasta, and it just minimizes on washing up if you do it this way. So I've got all my cheese sauce in there, and now I'm going to add all my goodies. Now at this stage, if you are just making the recipe that you've got in front of you, you can just mix it in like I'm doing now, and then it's going to go into your oven-proof dish to bake. But as I said, I like having lots of things in my mac and cheese. So my bacon is going to go in. I put peas in mine. I put peppers just because I love the flavor of them. And you can do anything. I mean, cauliflower goes so beautifully in this as well. So I'm going to mix that up, and you can see the mozzarella making it all gooey. And then I just love the color pops from the peppers. All right, there we go. Oh, last one. All right, is a little bit of mustard. Now I'm using Dijon mustard, but just because I didn't have any English mustard left, I finished my English mustard the other day. All right, mix that in. Oops. And the mustard just gives it a little bit of a kick and adds another layer of flavor. Right, there you go. It's all done. So I have my dish here, my oven-proof dish. And then I'm going to put everything in my oven-proof dish. Now there's lots of versions of macaroni and cheese, you know, and I love looking at all the versions of foods and how they're similar in some places in the world and how they differ. And the Americans put egg in their macaroni and cheese. And I have made it before. I wanted to try it and see what it was like, but to be perfectly honest, it's not my favorite. I don't like it with the egg in it, so I've never made it again. Right, so now we want to just don't make it look too perfect. You don't want it to be all flat. You want it to be right. And then the cheese that we reserved is going to be sprinkled over the top. Now my boys are weird as far as I'm concerned. They don't like the crust that forms from the cheese on the top. So when I put mine in the oven, I don't make it very dark and crusty, but you can make it as dark as you like it. If you like that cheesy crust, then just keep going until it's darker and it has that color to it. And I've saved a little bit of mozzarella for the top as well. There we go. And then I just decorate mine. I like decorating mine with tomato slices. And again, it's another one of your 5 a day. And it looks pretty because it's nice and bright. So I've done that. And now I'm going to pop it in the oven. And I will show you what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. Right, guys. That's my mac and cheese out of the oven. Now I bake mine, I don't grill it, but you can grill yours and that'll take about 15 minutes. And mine was in the oven for about 20 minutes. Dish up with a favorite salad, nice green salad, and you've got dinner. Enjoy, and I look forward to seeing your pictures.